Hello children, good morning. How are you all? Yeah, I hope you are all doing good. So, do you have any guess that what we are going to see in our today's class? Yes, of course, we are going to see the remaining part of our lesson, the newspaper story. Do you all remember what we have seen in our last class? Yes, we have seen the prose, the newspaper story. So, we are going to see the remaining part, the next part of our story today. So, before we enter into our today's class, let's go quick recap of first class. Okay, so what happened in the beginning of the story? There were two characters introduced. Who are they? Raju, the newspaper boy, and Yadav, the newspaper agent. Okay, so early in the morning itself, Raju gets up from his bed and he goes before the others wake up and he goes for his work by taking his motorcycle. So his first stop is Yadav's office. So he used to collect the newspapers from his office and he goes and delivers them each and every household. So he is coming to collect the newspapers from the agent's office, Yadav's office. Yadav, he is a man who motivates Raju always because he always used to say him that the job that you are doing is very important. You must understand the importance of your job, that you are bringing newspapers for every household. So you are the main person here. So he used to motivate Raju by giving him free meals, or he used to reward him by giving him money. Okay. So Yadav, whatever he could, he always gave for Raju. So Raju was so motivated, and Raju always wondered how a journalist worked for a whole day. So how a newspaper office would be, how an editorial section would be. So all these things he always used to wonder in his mind. And this Yadav, whenever he went for collecting newspaper amounts, he always received a good comment about Raju. They never complained. The people never complained about Raju that he is doing this, he is not properly delivering. So all these complaints never came about Raju to Yadav. So he was just thinking that he can take him to the newspaper's office. So Yadav said to Raju one day that I am having a surprise for you, that I am going to take you to the newspaper's office today. Raju was so happy because he said, that he was always wondering that how journalists work. So now he is going to see it live. So he was so happy that he is going to visit the newspaper's office. Okay. Finally, they went to the newspaper's office. He could see so many reporters here and there. They were working on various fields. So whatever the specialty they have, they were working on various fields. So there was a reporter who was saying about games. There was a reporter who was just having an information about the burglary that happened in a bank. So at last what happened, Nina the reporter, she was saying that by hearing the burglary in the bank, and she was saying that she is going to take the camera and go to the spot. Okay, so this is what in short we have seen. In short I'm explaining you now. So we have seen in our last class. So now we are going to see the remaining part of the class. Okay, so before we enter, we will see the hard words of today's class. So the first, see correspondent. What's that? Correspondent. correspondent. What is correspondent? A reporter who was at the scene of the incident. The reporter who was present at the scene of the incident in the happening places. Harry. Harry means harassed. Harry means harassed. Backbone. Backbone is main support. Backbone, main support. Dispatch. Dispatch is a report that a journalist sends to a newspaper office. Dispatch, a report that a journalist sends to a newspaper office. Defiantly. Defiantly means resistantly. Defiantly, resistantly. Okay, so these are the hard words that we have for today's class, and let's go through the class. See here children, some reporters write about art and entertainment. Raju overheard one discussing Aishwarya Rai's latest film and another one interviewing M.F. Hussain, the artist, on his latest art show. A foreign correspondent had just sent in an urgent dispatch from a war front. When war breaks out, these journalists may need to get very close to the action to do their job dangerous but exciting. An angry reporter stormed into the editorial section. Why have you rewritten my story? He asked a harried-looking sub-editor. Because that's the job, she answered defiantly. This was in the editorial newsroom. All reports and dispatches are sent to the sub-editors who sort out the articles. Along with the editor, they decide what to print and what to leave out. Okay, so shall we see the explanation of it? What comes here? After Nina has taken her camera and went to the spot, what happens here? Some reporters write about art and entertainment. So now, Raju could see there are so many various fields that the reporters are working. Okay, so there are some reporters who work about art and entertainment. Okay, so these lifestyle journalists, they actually used to write about art and entertainment, and they describe the happening places, so where the incidents happen. So by seeing, they describe the happening places, and by reviewing books, movies, etc. Okay, and then Raju overheard one discussing Aishwarya Rai's latest film and another interviewing M.F. Hussain, the artist, on his latest art show. So now Raju is just overhearing every reporters who are working in their newspaper's office. So when he was overhearing, he overheard one reporter, he was discussing about Aishwarya Rai's latest film. So he was writing about Aishwarya Rai's latest review. He was giving the review of Aishwarya Rai's latest film, and another one interviewing M.F. Hussain, the artist, on his latest art show. So the another reporter, he was interviewing M.F. Hussain, who was the famous artist, on his latest art show. So he was interviewing M.F. Hussain. So then what happened? A foreign correspondent had just sent in an urgent dispatch from a war front. So suddenly what happened? Suddenly the fax machine burned to life, which means that the fax machine gave its sound that a fax has come. Okay, so it started ringing its sound. So when the fax machine gave its sound, there was a fax about a foreign correspondent had just sent in an urgent dispatch from a war front. What is correspondent here? A reporter who is at the scene of the incident. So a foreign correspondent, a foreign reporter who is present at the scene of the incident in foreign. Okay, so these journalists, they used to live in foreign country, and they speak the language of the particular country where they live. But from there, they used to give the newspaper materials to the newspaper's office for where they work. Okay, so they actually sent fax to the fax for this newspaper's office. So they used to deliver the messages by either fax or by mail or by telephonic conversations. Okay, to the newspaper's office from immediately where the happening takes place. And when a war breaks out, these journalists may need to get very close to the action to do their job. Dangerous but exciting. So what happens when a war breaks out, right? So when a war breaks out, these journalists, they have to go to the particular place. They cannot be away from the place. They have to go very close to the place so that they can get the information very clearly and properly and at the right time. But being in a war place is not simple, right? So it is a matter of their life. It's a question mark of their life. Even if they are dead over there, we cannot blame anyone. So it's their work. So they have to go very close to the action where the war is happening. It's very dangerous but exciting, because from being at home, we are seeing what is happening there, right? So all these are happening because of the newspaper's office, from the editors who are giving us the news. So this job is very dangerous but exciting. Now, an angry reporter stormed into the editorial section. Why have you rewritten my story? He asked a harried-looking sub-editor. Now, so when Raju was inside, he could see so many reporters were doing everything, and suddenly one reporter, so an angry reporter, he was storming, he was going inside the editor's office in an angry way, and he asked the sub-editor. So he is now questioning the sub-editor. What did he question? Why have you rewritten my story? So these reporters, they used to give the stories to the editors, and these editors, they used to take the wanted news and they leave the unwanted news. So when this reporter gave the news to the sub-editor, he took only the wanted and he rewrote the section. So he was very angry that whatever I gave you is different, but you have rewritten it. Why did you do it to me? So why have you rewritten my story? You could have published it as I gave you. And the answer from the sub-editor, because that's my job. She answered defiantly. Defiantly means resistantly, in a very bold way. But whatever she is doing is right. In that way she was explaining. Because that's my job. So she was not worried, she was not afraid. So she answered boldly, she answered resistantly that because that's my job. You gave me a news. I can't give the news as you gave me, but you have to edit the news before publishing it. So that's my job. This was the editorial newsroom. All reports and dispatches are sent to the sub-editors who sort out the articles. So Raju, where he is present, okay, that was actually the editorial newsroom, and all the reports that comes from the reporters and all the dispatches from the foreign countries, from the foreign correspondents are sent to the sub-editors. So these sub-editors, they used to receive all these correspondents who sort out the articles, okay. So these sub-editors are the main people who sort out the main pages and the unwanted pages. Along with the editor, they decide what to print and what to leave out. So along with the editors only, they used to think of what to print and what to leave out. There is no one doing the job alone. So along with the editor, these reporters and other people who are working in the office, who are printing the newspaper, they used to decide what to be printed and what not to be printed, what is to be left out from the news that has come from the reporter. Okay, so next, sub-editors are the backbone of a newspaper and often work late into the night editing reports for the next day's papers. Raju overheard the report on the bank robbery. Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight, said Raju quietly. A large, burly man with a pencil stuck behind his ear peered down at Raju and said, "Yes, that's good, well done, boy." Yadav told Raju that this was the editor-in-chief of the paper. Job of the layout artist was to add pictures and illustrations to stories and arrange the reports on a page. The final stop was a large room in the deafening sound of massive printing presses. Large rolls of paper called newsprint were being fed into a machine at one end. The machine printed, cut and folded 40,000 copies of the newspaper every hour. These finished copies, Raju realized, were the same that he delivered every day. Raju left the newspaper office with a strange sense of excitement and anticipation. He was the only one who knew the headlines of the next day's paper. Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight. Okay, children. So, what did you see here? Sub-editors are the backbone of a newspaper and often work late into the night editing reports for the next day's paper. Already we are saying that actually this was the editorial newsroom, and the reports and dispatches, everything are first sent to the sub-editors, and these sub-editors decide with every others and decide what to print and what not to print, right? So they take only the necessary things and they will just leave off all the other things. So they decide what to print and what to leave. So these sub-editors are the backbone of a newspaper. So without these editors, we cannot have a proper alignment in a newspaper, and often work late into the night editing reports for the next day's paper. So for the next day's papers to be delivered, these editorials play a main role. They work even late into night because they have to finish the work that day. Then only it can be delivered in the next day, right? So these are the people who work and who are the backbone of a newspaper. Raju overheard the report on the bank robbery. Now, Raju, when he was in the office, he's just seeing all these things. And now some group of editors, sub-editors are speaking. And when he is hearing what they speak, so he was overhearing when the sub-editors discuss about the topic. Okay, so they were discussing about the topic for the robbery that happened in a bank. Already we have seen, right? So for a robbery that happened in a bank. Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight, said Raju quietly. So these people, these sub-editors, they were confused. What is the topic that we can give for this? Because the topic, the title must be attractive in the newspaper. Then only everyone will have an intention to read it, right? So when Raju was seeing these people are discussing about the title, he said, "Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight." So, but he was saying very quietly. What did he say? Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight for the robbery, for the incident that happened in a bank. For the robbery, he is giving a title, but he is saying it very quiet. He didn't want any others to hear it. So, by hearing that, he just thought of a title in his mind. A large burly man with a pencil stuck behind his ear peered down at Raju and said, "Yes, that's good. Well done, boy." But Raju, he thought that no one has heard that. What happened here? A large burly man. Burly means heavily built or large or strong. A man who is very strong and mature. Okay. So a large burly man who was working there with a pencil stuck behind his ears. How? With a pencil, like we used to have like this now. Like this we used to have. So this is called pencil stuck. So he was having the pencil stuck behind his ears, peered down at Raju. So he was just looking into the narrow eyes at Raju and said, "Yes, that's good. Well done, boy." So now he is encouraging Raju. He is praising Raju and he has given a good title. But Raju didn't have intention of giving a title for it. He said it very quietly, just inside him. But this man overheard what Raju said, and he praised him, saying that that's good. Well done, boy. Yadav told Raju that this was the editor-in-chief of the paper. Okay, so now Yadav, the newspaper agent, later, so once all these things happened, Raju didn't know who that man was because he didn't know any of the fellows who was working in the editorial office. But Yadav, the newspaper agent, told Raju that this was the editor-in-chief of the paper. So he was the chief of the editors. So there were many sub-editors. He was the chief of the editor. So without his permission, nothing will be declared. So Yadav just made Raju know that he is the chief of the editor. Job of the layout artist was to add pictures and illustrations to stories and arrange the reports on a page. And after that, what happens? In the next room, Raju could see there are so many people. Okay, there are so many people. They are just sitting and working with their colorful laptops, computers, everything. So he could see, okay, who are these people who are working with the computers? Yes, they are the layout artists, those who add pictures and illustrations to stories. So when a news is given, it cannot be given simply, right? So in a newspaper, we could see many pictures related to the incident. So these layout artists are the people who add stories, who add pictures and illustrations to stories and arrange the reports on a page. So in a page, if the reports are arranged in a particular way, in a proper way, these layout artists play a main role. Okay. The final stop was a large room in the deafening sound of massive printing presses. Large rolls of paper called newsprints were being fed into a machine at one end. So till this we have seen who are the people playing the roles of printing a newspaper. So now we are coming to the final stop. That was actually a large room in the basement. There was a large room in that particular editorial office in the basement. Basement means under the ground floor. So there was a room under the ground floor, that is in the basement, with a deafening sound of massive printing presses. So there was a large sound, there was a huge sound that comes from the massive printing presses that prints the newspapers. Large rolls of papers called newsprints were being fed into a machine at one night. So what happens? So they are actually feeding the papers, feeding the newspapers. Okay, in the newspaper only news is being printed. So they are feeding the newsprints from one end into a machine. So large rolls of papers are being fed into that machine from one end. The machine printed, cut and folded 40,000 copies of the newspaper every hour. So what happens? The particular machine which is getting the newsprint for printing the news is printing and cut and folded. It is printing the news, cutting the papers and folding the papers. How many copies? 40,000 copies of the newspaper every hour. For each hour there were 40,000 copies released from the printer. Okay, released from the machine that is printing the newspapers. These finished copies, Raju realized were the same that he delivered. So Raju seeing all this now, he was so wondered, he was so excited, he was so happy to see all this. So now he realized that these finished copies, so all these are the copies. When everything is completed and printed from these machines are the finished copies that is kept ready for what? Ready for delivery at the same day. So on the same day, they are delivering day and night they work, and in the morning they are delivering the paper. So he could realize that these are the papers that he is delivering to each and every houses every day. Okay. Raju left the newspaper office with a strange sense of excitement and anticipation. Now Raju has to leave the office because he has seen everything and the visit is over. Now he has to leave the office. Now he left the newspaper office with a strange sense of excitement. So he had a excitement and anticipation. Anticipation is expectation. So now he gets an excitement. So how newspaper is being printed, how people work for them. By seeing all that, he was very excited and he get an expectation into his mind that something is going to be good. He was the only one who knew the headlines of the next day's papers. Because why was he expecting? Yeah, he was expecting that he knew the title that is going to be there on the newspaper the next day. So he was the only one who knew the headlines because the title was given by Raju to the editors. So he was the only one who knew the headlines of the next day's paper. No one else knew, only Raju knew the headline. What is that headline? What he said earlier. Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight. What is that? Masked gunmen raid bank in broad daylight. Okay students, so we have completed this lesson with this. Okay, let's go a quick recap. So in the beginning we have seen that Raju, he was the newspaper boy, and Yadav, he was the newspaper agent, and Raju gets it so quickly and he is going to deliver newspapers to every houses from collecting it from the newspaper agent Yadav. And Yadav, he always rewarded Raju because his work was just satisfied and he wanted to motivate him more. And after that, Yadav, one day, whenever Yadav went to collect the money from people, they always said good about Raju. So Yadav took Raju to the newspaper office one day, and in the newspaper office he is seeing how the editors work, how the sub-editors work, and how the main editors work, and how the reporters deliver the news, and how people from foreign countries, reporters from foreign countries, they deliver the message to the newspaper office immediately, and what are the ways they use for delivering the news, and how after that how paper is being printed, and the title that he has given for the news, for the incident that happened in a bank of robbery, and how layout artists add pictures and illustrations for stories, and they arrange reports on the page, and the final stop, that is the printing room, how newspaper is being printed in a machine, that is the newsprint is being fed from one end, and this newspaper machine is printing, cutting and folding and printing the newspapers 40,000 copies of each and every hour. For 1 hour it delivers 40,000 copies from the machine. So Raju realized that these are the copies that he is delivering to each and every houses, and at the end he was with an excitement that he knew the title of the newspaper for the next day because the title was given by him, and the title is Masked Gunmen Raid Bank in Broad daylight. Okay children, so we are moving on to the homework session for this one. So already I have given you what? I have given you synonyms, antonyms and the short answers. Okay, and for today, so complete short answers and detailed answers. Whatever we have written before, synonyms, antonyms and short answers, and the remaining short answers and the detailed answers in your classwork note. So you have to check the PDF properly and write it without any mistakes. Okay. And for your activity today, complete sections A and B from your book, page number 68. So if you take your book, page number 68, there will be two sections in vocabulary. Section A and section B. So there are some sentences given and you need to find the perfect word for the sentences that is given. For example, the paper that print the news. Okay, the paper that news is printed on. So in which paper the news is printed? Newspaper. So likewise you will have to find the word for the statements that is given. So finding the suitable words for the given statements. Okay. So I am attaching this activity sheet with the homework section with the homework PDF. Those who have your book, you can write in your book itself. Those who don't have your book, you need to copy as it is given in the PDF and write it in your classwork note itself and send it in the WhatsApp group. Okay children, so we'll catch you all in the next session. Thank you all.